On our anniversary trip in Bali, my wife asked the tour guide to put sunscreen on her back. I was sitting 2 feet away. When I raised an eyebrow, she said loud enough for the whole beach to hear, "Relax, Mason. If you're jealous, go home." So I did. Look, I'm not saying I expected my marriage to implode on a beach in Bali, but if I'm being honest, there were signs. Red flags, really. The kind you ignore, because you're too busy pretending everything's fine while your soul slowly dies inside. But that particular Tuesday afternoon, that was the moment I realized I'd been married to a walking reality show for 3 years, and I'd somehow become the unpaid extra nobody bothered to tell about the script changes. The beach was perfect. I'll give it that. White sand that looked like it had been photoshopped into existence. Water so blue it made you question if God had a thing for tropical screensavers, and palm trees swaying like they were auditioning for a Corona commercial. Talia had been talking about this trip for months, showing me Instagram posts from influencers who'd apparently found enlightenment between cocktails and selfies. I should have known better. I should have realized that any vacation requiring that much aesthetic planning was probably going to end with me questioning my life choices. We'd been there for 2 days, and honestly, it hadn't been terrible. Sure, Talia had spent approximately 90% of her time positioning herself for the perfect shot. And yes, I'd become her personal photographer / lighting consultant / human tripod, but whatever. Marriage is about compromise, right? She gets her Instagram content, I get. Well, I was still figuring out what I got, but I'm sure it was coming. Then came the sunscreen incident. We were set up on our beach loungers. The expensive ones Talia had insisted we rent because apparently regular beach chairs were too basic. And I was actually relaxing for once. I had a beer that was still cold, a book I was pretending to read, and the sun doing that thing where it makes you feel like maybe life isn't so bad after all. That's when Talia sat up, did that hair flip thing she does when she's about to make a decision that will definitely affect me, and looked around like she was shopping for something. "Mason," she said in that tone that immediately activated my fight-or-flight response. "I need someone to put sunscreen on my back." Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, "Mason, you idiot. That's your job. You're the husband. That's literally husband duties 101. And you'd be right. Except here's the thing. I was literally sitting 2 feet away from her. 2 feet. I could have reached over and done it without even putting down my beer. It would have taken 30 seconds max. But Talia wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Zayn. Zayn was our tour guide. And let me paint you a picture. This guy looked like he'd been assembled in a lab specifically designed to make married men feel inadequate. He was 6'2", had abs you could grate cheese on, and somehow his skin had achieved a level of tan that suggested he was possibly part golden retriever. He wore board shorts that hung off his hips like they were afraid of commitment. And I'm pretty sure his hair had its own sponsorship deal with some organic coconut oil company. The guy was basically a walking thirst trap, and he knew it. "Hey, Zayn," Talia called out, waving him over like she was hailing a cab in Manhattan. "Could you do me a huge favor?" I watched this happen in real time, folks. I watched my wife, the woman I'd pledged my life to in front of 200 people in an open bar, completely bypassed me to ask Captain Protein Shake to rub lotion on her back. And Zayn, bless his clueless, chiseled heart, jogged over with a smile that belonged on a toothpaste commercial. "Sure thing," he said. All sunshine and good vibes, and probably zero awareness that he was about to become a supporting character in my marital breakdown. Talia handed him the sunscreen, the expensive organic kind that cost $40 and supposedly had anti-aging properties, and lay down on her stomach. Then, she reached back and untied her bikini top. I sat there, beer frozen halfway to my mouth, watching this unfold like a car crash in slow motion. Zayn squirted the lotion into his hands, rubbed them together like he was starting a fire, and began applying it to my wife's back with the kind of attention you'd give to a vintage car or a priceless painting. That's when I raised an eyebrow, just one, a single eyebrow of, "Are you freaking kidding me right now?" Talia must have felt it because she turned her head toward me and I swear to God, she had this smile on her face. Not an apologetic smile, not an oops, I probably should have asked you first smile. No, this was a smile that said, "I know exactly what I'm doing and I'm enjoying your discomfort." Then she said it loud enough that not only did I hear it, but so did the couple from Minnesota 3 loungers down, the group of Australian backpackers playing volleyball, and probably a few dolphins out in the bay. "Relax, Mason. I just asked him to put sunscreen on my back. If you're jealous, go home." The beach got quiet. Not nature documentary quiet, but that specific kind of quiet that happens when people are pretending they're not listening while absolutely listening to every single word. Zayn's hands paused for half a second. Even he knew that was brutal. But then Talia laughed and he laughed and suddenly everyone was laughing. Everyone except me. I sat there, beer still in hand, sunglasses hiding what I'm sure was a face that could have launched 1,000 divorce attorneys. Someone from the Australian group actually said, "Oof." Loud enough for me to hear. The Minnesota couple exchanged a look that clearly communicated, "Thank God that's not us." Even Zayn looked uncomfortable, though he kept rubbing that sunscreen like his job depended on it. Talia was still smiling, soaking in the attention like it was vitamin D. She'd gotten exactly what she wanted, a moment, an audience, a story she could probably twist into something funny later. My husband got jealous over sunscreen. Would make a great caption for whatever sunset photo she posted tonight. I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. I didn't give her the satisfaction of looking hurt or angry or anything that she could use as ammunition later. I just nodded, took a long sip of my beer, and thought to myself with crystal clear certainty, oh, I will. I will go home. Not because I'm jealous. Not because I can't handle her being friendly, but because I just realized something fundamental. I'd been married to someone who thought publicly humiliating me was comedy, and I'd been playing along like it was normal. So yeah, I was going home. I just wasn't going to tell her yet. Here's the thing about falling in love with someone who has big personality energy. At first, it's intoxicating. It's like mainlining espresso mixed with fireworks and a little bit of danger. You feel alive. You feel like you've won some kind of lottery where the prize is never being bored again. What they don't tell you is that eventually you're going to crave decaf and silence like a desert wanderer craves water. I met Talia at my buddy Derek's wedding reception. Not during the ceremony, mind you. She showed up fashionably late to that, making an entrance that had half the guests turning around to see who was disrupting the vows. No, I met her at the reception at the bar where she was trying to convince the bartender that a vodka soda with a splash of champagne and 3 lime wedges, not 2, not 4, exactly 3, was a totally normal drink order and not the beginning of a psychological profile. The bartender looked like he was contemplating a career change. I was standing there waiting for my whiskey, trying not to laugh, when she turned to me and said, "Don't judge. I know what I like and I refuse to settle for mediocrity in my cocktails or my life." That line should have been cringe. It should have sent me running toward the exit like the building was on fire. But the way she said it with this smile that was half serious and half making fun of herself got me. She had this energy that made you want to lean in closer like she was about to tell you a secret that would change your whole perspective on life. "Fair enough," I said, grabbing my whiskey. "I respect the lime specificity." "Mason," she read from my name tag. Yeah, Derek had made everyone wear name tags like we were at a corporate mixer because apparently traditional weddings weren't awkward enough. "Let me guess, you're the friend who gives practical gifts. Probably got them a toaster. KitchenAid mixer, actually. Metallic silver. Very practical." She threw her head back and laughed like I just performed a comedy special. "See, I knew it. You're one of those guys who thinks matching towels are romantic. Matching towels are extremely romantic. Shows commitment, attention to detail." We ended up talking for 3 hours. Well, she talked for 3 hours and I listened, laughed, and occasionally contributed a sentence or two. She told me about her job in marketing, her dreams of starting her own consulting firm, her theory that people who say they don't like cilantro are just genetically boring. She was magnetic, the kind of woman who could make a funeral feel like a karaoke night, which now that I think about it, she probably would have tried to organize. Talia was bold, funny, and had this sparkle that made you forget common sense existed. When she talked, she used her whole body, hands gesturing wildly, eyes lighting up, head tilting at angles that somehow emphasized every point she was making. She was confident without being arrogant, self-assured without being dismissive. She knew she was attractive, but she wore it like a comfortable jacket, not like a weapon. That night, she got the DJ to play 3 songs that absolutely didn't fit the wedding vibe, convinced the bride's grandmother to do a shot of tequila, and somehow made me feel like I was the most interesting person in the room, even though I'd barely said 20 words. By the end of the night, I had her number, a date scheduled for Thursday, and the distinct feeling that my life was about to get a lot more interesting. And for the first year, maybe even the first 2 years, it was great. Talia's confidence was sexy. She'd walk into a room and own it. Not because she was trying to prove anything, but because she genuinely felt comfortable in her own skin. She'd strike up conversations with strangers, turn awkward social situations into adventures and make mundane activities like grocery shopping feel like we were on some kind of mission. But somewhere along the line, and I swear I can't pinpoint exactly when it happened, her confidence mutated. It evolved from this natural self-assurance into something else entirely. Something that required an audience. Something that needed constant validation and attention like plants need sunlight, except way more annoying and with worse consequences for everyone involved. The mirrors came first. We'd be walking past a storefront and she'd stop, not to look at what was being sold, but to check herself out in the reflection, adjust her hair, change her angle, take a selfie, then another one. Then 5 more. Because the lighting is perfect here. Mason, you wouldn't understand. I'd stand there like security detail, holding her purse and whatever shopping bags we'd accumulated while she performed what I can only describe as a one-woman photo shoot for an audience of nobody. Tourists would walk around us. Shop employees would watch through the window. I'd check my phone, check the weather, check my will to live. Okay, got it, she'd finally say, then show me 12 nearly identical photos. Which one should I post? They look the same. They always look the same, but God forbid I said that. Then came the Wi-Fi addiction. Every restaurant, coffee shop, or hotel we walked into, her first question wasn't about the menu or the amenities. It was, what's the Wi-Fi password? She needed to post. She needed a story. She needed to check her engagement metrics like a day trader watching the stock market. Breakfast posted. Lunch posted. That weird cloud that kind of looked like a dolphin posted with 3 hashtags and a caption about finding magic in everyday moments. Meanwhile, I'm sitting across from her trying to have an actual conversation, competing with 847 followers and losing badly. The worst part was the men. And look, I'm not some insecure dude who loses it every time another guy exists in my wife's vicinity. I have eyes. I know Talia is attractive. I know men are going to look. That's fine. That's normal. What's not normal is when your wife treats every male interaction like an audition for a role in a romantic comedy where I'm not even a supporting character. We'd be at a bar and the bartender would ask what she wanted to drink. Simple transaction, right? Not for Talia. She'd lean forward, make intense eye contact, laugh at absolutely nothing funny, and somehow turn "I'll have a glass of rose" into a 15-minute conversation about his journey in the beverage industry. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there like a potted plant, wondering if I should just order for myself or wait until she's done performing. At parties, she'd work the room like a politician on election night. Every group needed her commentary. Every guy needed her attention. And if someone didn't immediately respond to her energy, she'd try harder, laugh louder, touch their arm more, stand closer. It was exhausting to watch and even more exhausting to be married to. "I'm just being friendly," she'd say whenever I brought it up. "You're being jealous and insecure." There it was. The defense that made me the villain for noticing that my wife treated every social situation like a performance where she was both the star and the director. I wasn't jealous. I was tired. There's a difference. She loved attention like I love silence. Passionately, excessively, and usually at the wrong time. And maybe that should have been my sign. Maybe I should have realized that someone who needs constant external validation is eventually going to run out of ways to get it from just one person. Maybe I should have understood that confidence that needs an audience isn't really confidence at all. But hindsight's 20/20 and I was too busy being the supporting character in her never-ending show to see that I'd stopped being a husband and started being a prop. The problem with Talia's friend group wasn't that they were bad people. They weren't evil or malicious or plotting world domination from a secret lair. The problem was that they were exactly like her. Attention-seeking chaos coordinators who thought influencer was a personality type and that documenting every single moment of their existence was somehow a public service. There was Sophia, the loud one. And I don't mean loud like speaks up in meetings loud. I mean loud like has never had an inside thought in her entire life. Loud. The kind of person who laughs at maximum volume regardless of whether something is actually funny. Who tells stories that require her to stand up and act out all the parts. Who treats every conversation like she's performing for an invisible audience that's definitely going to give her a standing ovation. She had opinions about everything. Your outfit, your drink choice, your zodiac sign, your childhood trauma, and she shared them with the enthusiasm of someone who genuinely believed the world was waiting for her take on literally anything. Then there was Luke, the wannabe DJ. Luke owned 3 different MIDI controllers, had a SoundCloud with 47 followers, mostly bots, and introduced himself at parties by saying, "Yeah, I'm kind of a music producer with the confidence of someone who'd won a Grammy instead of someone who made beats in his mom's basement." He wore festival wristbands from events that happened 3 years ago, had strong opinions about the scene, and constantly tried to get everyone to listen to his new track, which always sounded exactly like his old track, but with different laser noises. And finally, there was Mia, the unofficial gossip channel. If TMZ was a person, it would be Mia, except TMZ probably has better fact-checking. This woman knew everything about everyone. And if she didn't know it, she'd make an educated guess and present it as confirmed intelligence. She spoke exclusively in dramatic whispers, even when sharing completely mundane information. "Did you hear?" she'd say, leaning in conspiratorially. "Jennifer from accounting is getting Thai food for lunch." Thai food, Mason, what do you think that means? I never knew what it meant. I don't think she knew what it meant, but she sure acted like it was Watergate-level scandal. When Talia told me these three were joining us in Bali, I should have faked a work emergency. I should have claimed sudden onset amnesia. I should have literally done anything other than say, sure. Sounds fun, like an idiot who'd never met these people before. The first 2 days weren't catastrophic. They were just a lot. Sophia shrieked at every sunset like she'd never seen one before. Luke tried to befriend the hotel DJ and kept saying things like, "Yeah, man. I could totally see myself playing a set out here." Mia found drama and everything. Apparently, the couple in room 304 was definitely having an affair because they ordered room service twice in one day, which I guess is suspicious if you're insane. But I played along. I smiled. I nodded. I took the group photos. I pretended that spending my vacation with 3 people who treated real life like a reality show was exactly what I'd signed up for. Marriage is about compromise, right? Talia wanted her friends there, so her friends were there. I could survive a week. I'd survived worse. Like that time, I went to her company retreat and had to do trust falls with her boss who smelled like pepper and regret. Then Zayn entered the picture and suddenly my vacation became a front row seat to my own humiliation, directed by my wife and produced by her Greek chorus of enablers. Zayn was the tour guide the resort assigned to our group. The first time I saw him, he was standing on the beach at sunrise doing yoga or tai chi or some kind of slow-motion interpretive dance with the ocean. The guy was shirtless, obviously, because I'm pretty sure he was contractually obligated to be shirtless at all times. He was tan in that way that suggested he'd never been indoors. Had tattoos that probably meant something deep in a language he didn't speak, and moved with the kind of easy confidence that comes from knowing you're exactly what every romance novel describes when they say chiseled. His hair was that perfectly messy style that takes either 0 effort or 2 hours and $75 worth of product. I genuinely couldn't tell which. He had one of those smiles that belonged in a teeth-whitening commercial. And he spoke with this Australian-adjacent accent that made everything sound like an adventure, even when he was explaining the buffet hours. "Hey everyone," he said, approaching our breakfast table like he was hosting a morning show. "I'm Zay. I'll be your guide for the week. We've got some amazing experiences lined up. Snorkeling, temple visits, a sunset cruise. Going to be legendary." Sophia practically vibrated out of her chair. "Oh my God. Hi, I'm Sophia. This is Mia. That's Luke. And that's Talia and Mason." I got a casual head nod. Everyone else got the full wattage smile. "Beautiful," Zayn said. And I swear he was looking at Talia when he said it. "Love the energy already. This is going to be a great week." That's when I should have known. That's when the universe was sending me a clear signal that said, "Mason, buddy, maybe fake that work emergency now before this gets worse." But no, I sat there drinking my coffee, thinking everything would be fine. It was not fine. Over the next few days, I watched my wife transform into a version of herself I'd never seen before. Or maybe I had seen it, and I'd just been too dumb to notice. Every time Zayn was around, which was constantly, because he was literally our tour guide, Talia became someone else. Someone whose volume increased by 40%. Whose laugh became this weird giggle I'd never heard in 3 years of marriage, and whose entire body language changed like she'd been replaced by an alien who'd studied human flirting from a WikiHow article. At the temple tour, Zayn explained the history of some ancient statue. Talia stood next to him, nodding like she was absorbing groundbreaking information, touching his arm every time she asked a question. "Oh my God, that's so interesting. Tell me more about the architecture thing you just said." During the snorkeling trip, she needed help putting on her fins. Zayn obliged, kneeling in front of her like he was proposing while she giggled and said, "I'm so bad at this stuff." Even though I'd literally watched her put on fins by herself on our honeymoon at dinner, she somehow always ended up sitting next to him asking about his life, his travels, his philosophies on being present. Meanwhile, I sat at the other end of the table with Luke, who was explaining his vision for a dubstep remix of traditional Balinese music that absolutely nobody asked about. Sophia and Mia, bless their enabling hearts, acted like this was all completely normal. They'd giggle along, make comments about how cute Zayn was, and occasionally glance at me like I was a science experiment they were monitoring for interesting reactions. The worst part, Talia wasn't even subtle about it. She wasn't sneaking around or being secretive. She was flirting openly publicly with an enthusiasm that suggested she'd forgotten I existed, or worse, that she remembered I existed and didn't care. I sat there during these interactions like a Wi-Fi router. Technically essential for everything to function, but completely invisible and taken for granted. Nobody acknowledged me. Nobody included me. I was just there existing in the background watching my wife perform for a guy whose job was literally to be nice to tourists. And here's the kicker. When I tried to participate, tried to join conversations or suggest activities, Talia would brush me off with a mason. We're just having fun. Don't be boring. Or can you go get me another drink? I became the errand boy in my own vacation, fetching cocktails and taking photos while my wife and her friends treated Zayn like he was the second coming of Crisworth. By day 4, I was seriously considering just booking myself a separate hotel room and calling it a solo retreat. At least then I could stop pretending I was enjoying watching my wife laugh, toss her hair, and touch another man's bicep while explaining how strong he must be from all that paddle boarding. Yeah, I really wished I'd booked a solo vacation. Or better yet, no vacation at all. You know what nobody tells you about reaching your breaking point? It's not dramatic. There's no explosion, no throwing things, no big confrontation where you deliver a monologue that makes everyone realize they've wronged you. That's movie stuff. Real breaking points are quiet. They're the moment you're sitting on a beach watching your wife publicly humiliate you. And instead of feeling angry, you just feel done. Done like a steak that's been on the grill too long. Done like a phone call you've been trying to end for 20 minutes. Done like a person who's finally realized that some problems can't be fixed with communication or compromise or couples therapy led by someone named Drive Sunshine who keeps talking about finding your shared truth. After the sunscreen incident, I sat on that beach for another hour. I didn't storm off. I didn't make a scene. I just sat there, finished my beer, and watched the waves do their thing while my brain processed what had just happened and what I was going to do about it. Talia and her crew had moved on to playing volleyball with Zayn and some other tourists, shrieking and laughing like they were filming a commercial for tequila or poor life choices. Sophia kept yelling, "Get it, girl." Every time Talia made contact with the ball, Mia was taking photos from every angle like she was documenting a National Geographic special. Luke was trying to explain the physics of the perfect serve to anyone who'd listen. And Zayn was just being Zayn, effortlessly athletic, probably thinking about protein shakes and his next shirtless Instagram post. I watched all of this from my lounger. And I felt nothing. Not jealousy, not anger, not even disappointment, just this weird calm clarity that felt like someone had finally turned off a noise I'd been hearing for so long I'd forgotten it wasn't supposed to be there. That's when I stood up, grabbed my towel, and walked back to the hotel. Our room was on the 4th floor with a view of the ocean that Talia had insisted was essential for the aesthetic. It cost an extra $200 a night for that view. Worth it, apparently, for the 3 photos she'd taken from the balcony before never looking at it again. I stood in the doorway for a second, looking at the mess. Her stuff was everywhere. Makeup scattered across the bathroom counter like a Sephora had exploded. Clothes draped over every available surface. Charging cables tangled in ways that defied physics. My stuff was neatly packed in one corner because I was apparently the only person in this marriage who understood that hotel rooms aren't storage units. Then I grabbed my suitcase and started packing. Not angry packing, not throwing things around packing. Calm, methodical, almost meditative packing. I folded each shirt like I was preparing for emotional war. Creases lined up perfectly. Colors organized, pants folded in thirds, socks paired and rolled. My toiletries went into their designated bag. Nothing forgotten, nothing left behind. There's something powerful about packing quietly. It's a level of cold that yelling can never achieve. Yelling is hot anger. It burns fast and people can dismiss it as you losing control or being dramatic. But quiet packing, that's calculated. That's a decision. That's the sound of someone who's thought it through and isn't changing their mind. I zipped up my suitcase and pulled out my phone. American Airlines had a flight leaving Bali at 11 tomorrow morning. It had a layover in Tokyo and another in Los Angeles, which meant I'd be traveling for approximately 1,000 years, but I didn't care. I booked it business class because screw it. I was already having a terrible week and I might as well have leg room while processing my marital breakdown. Confirmation email received. Boarding pass downloaded. Hotel checkout scheduled for 9 a.m. My phone buzz. A text from Talia. "Where'd you go?" "We're getting drinks at the beach bar." I stared at that message for a solid minute. She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't apologize for the sunscreen thing. Didn't even acknowledge that maybe possibly she'd crossed a line. Just wanted to know where I was so I could presumably rejoin the audience for her performance. I typed back. "Heading to bed early. Have fun." Polite, neutral, giving away absolutely nothing. Okay, lol. Don't be boring. Don't be boring. Right? Because the real problem here was that I wasn't entertaining enough while watching my wife flirt with the tour guide. I looked around the room one more time, making sure I hadn't forgotten anything important. Then I grabbed my suitcase and walked down to the front desk. The receptionist was a young guy named Audi, who'd checked us in 4 days ago. He'd complimented Talia's dress, asked about our plans, and seemed genuinely excited that we were there to celebrate our anniversary. Now, he looked at me standing there with a packed suitcase at 7 p.m., and I could see him trying to figure out if he should ask questions or just process whatever I needed. "I need to check out tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, I said. "Just me. My wife is staying for the rest of the week." He nodded slowly, typing something into his computer. "Of course, Mr. Hartley. I'll prepare your bill. Will you need transportation to the airport?" "Yes, please. Flight leaves at 11 o'clock. More typing. All set. Is there anything else I can help you with?" I almost laughed. What could he possibly help me with? Did they have a service for your wife humiliated you in public and you're fleeing the country? Was there a spa treatment for that? No, that's it. Thanks. I went back upstairs and sat on the balcony with a beer from the mini bar that cost $12 and tasted like regret. The ocean looked the same as it had this morning. Beautiful, peaceful, completely indifferent to human drama. The sun was setting, painting everything in those golden hour colors that Instagram influencers lose their minds over. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Talia. "Zayn's taking us to this amazing restaurant. You should come." I sipped my $12 beer and didn't respond. An hour later, "Hello. You're being weird." Still didn't respond. Another hour. "Fine, be childish. We're having fun without you anyway." I turned off my phone. Here's what I learned about arguments over 3 years of marriage. The person who talks more loses. The person who gets emotional loses. The person who tries to explain their feelings loses because the other person will twist it, gaslight it, make you feel crazy for caring. They'll tell you you're overreacting, being sensitive, can't take a joke. But silence is undefeatable. You can't argue with silence. You can't gaslight nothing. You can't make someone feel crazy for saying absolutely nothing at all. Around 11 o'clock, I heard voices in the hallway. Talia and her friends, loud and definitely drunk, laughing about something that was probably only funny to people who'd had 6 cocktails. I heard her key card beep, the door open, then her footsteps stopping when she saw my packed suitcase by the door. "Mason." She sounded confused, not concerned. "Why is your stuff packed?" I was lying in bed, eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. Method acting at its finest. Mason louder now with an edge of annoyance. "Are you seriously asleep at 11 o'clock? We just got back." I didn't move. Didn't respond. Just kept breathing slowly and evenly like I was the most peacefully sleeping person in the history of sleep. I heard her huff, mumble something about me being no fun, then stumble into the bathroom. The sink ran more stumbling. Then she climbed into bed and within 5 minutes she was snoring lightly, probably dreaming about her Instagram engagement or Zayn's abs or whatever occupied the mind of someone who thought humiliating their spouse was peak comedy. I lay there for another hour, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling fan going in slow circles. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, I'd walk out of this hotel. I'd get in that car to the airport. I'd fly home. And the best part, she had no idea it was coming. Silence, I discovered, wasn't just golden. It was cheaper than therapy, more effective than yelling, and way more satisfying than any argument I could have possibly won. My alarm went off at 7:30 a.m., which in Bali vacation time is basically the middle of the night. Talia was still passed out next to me, one arm flung over her face, mouth slightly open, looking like she'd gone 10 rounds with a bottle of coconut rum and lost, which based on the smell coming from her side of the bed, wasn't far from the truth. I got up quietly, showered, dressed, and did one final check of the room to make sure I hadn't left anything behind. Wallet, passport, phone, chargers, dignity, all accounted for. Well, most of my dignity. Some of it was probably still on that beach, buried in the sand next to my patience and will to continue this marriage. Talia didn't move. The woman could sleep through a natural disaster, which was convenient because she was about to wake up to a personal one. I grabbed my suitcase, took one last look at her sleeping peacefully without a care in the world, and left. Didn't leave a note. Didn't wake her up to say goodbye. Just closed the door behind me with a soft click that felt like the period at the end of a very long, very exhausting sentence. Audi was at the front desk again, looking significantly more awake than anyone had a right to be at this hour. He smiled when he saw me. That professional hospitality smile that probably hit 1,000 stories about terrible tourists and weird requests. "Good morning, Mr. Hartley. Your car is waiting outside." I have your bill here. He slid the paper across the counter and I glanced at it. 4 nights, ocean view room, mini bar charges, room service, spa services that I definitely didn't use, but Talia definitely did. The total made my eye twitch slightly, but whatever. I handed him my credit card. Actually, I said as he was processing the payment. My wife is staying for the rest of the week. Could you please remove my card from the room and just leave hers on file? Something flickered in his eyes. Understanding maybe or recognition of a situation he'd definitely seen before. Of course, sir. I'll make that change right away. He processed my checkout, removed my card from their system, and confirmed that only Talia's card would be charged for the remaining nights and any additional expenses. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Thank you for staying with us, Audi said, handing me my receipt. I hope you had a pleasant visit. I almost laughed. Pleasant wasn't the word I'd use, but it was definitely memorable. Yeah, I said. Educational for sure. The car ride to the airport was peaceful. Just me, my suitcase, and a driver who didn't feel the need to fill the silence with small talk. We drove through the early morning streets of Bali, past temples and rice paddies, and locals starting their day. And I felt this weird sense of lightness, like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to not be weighed down. Security was easy. The flight was on time. I boarded, found my business class seat, accepted the pre-flight champagne like I was celebrating something, which in a way I was, and settled in for the longest travel day of my life. That's when my phone started going off. I turned it back on after boarding and immediately the notifications started rolling in like a tsunami of regret and confusion. Text after text, call after call. Voicemails piling up, all from Talia. The first few texts were from around 9:30 a.m., right about when she probably woke up and realized I wasn't in the room. Where are you, Mason? Seriously, where did you go? Your stuff is gone. Are you kidding me right now? Then came the calls. 7 missed calls in the span of 15 minutes. I didn't answer any of them. Just watched them pop up on my screen like a very angry game of whack-a-mole. Then the voicemail started and oh boy, those were entertaining. The first one was confused. Mason, what the hell? Where are you? Your suitcase is gone. Did you leave? Call me back right now. The second one was angry. I cannot believe you would just leave without saying anything. This is so immature. You're seriously acting like a child right now. We need to talk about this. The third one was a masterpiece. Okay, I get it. You're mad about yesterday, but you're overreacting. It was just sunscreen. You told me to go home if I was jealous, and you actually left. Who does that? You embarrassed me in front of everyone. I sat there in my business class seat, champagne in hand, listening to my wife tell me that I had embarrassed her. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife and serve it at a dinner party. But wait, it got better. Around 11 a.m. Bali time, right about when she probably went down to the lobby to look for me, the text changed tone dramatically. The hotel says, your card declined. Mason, they're saying, your card isn't on file anymore. My card isn't working either. Can you call them and fix this? Mason, this isn't funny. I had to put my phone down because I was laughing so hard that the flight attendant asked if I was okay. My card didn't decline. I removed it from the account entirely and her card wasn't working because, well, Talia had a spending problem and maxed out her credit card approximately every other month. I usually just paid it off because it was easier than dealing with the drama, but I guess she'd forgotten about that little detail. The next voicemail was pure panic. Mason, please. I'm at the front desk and they're saying I need to pay for the rest of the week up front and my card isn't going through and your card is gone and I don't understand what's happening. Can you please just call me back, please? Then came my personal favorite text message. I had to call my mom for money. Do you know how humiliating that was? Oh, I'm sorry. Was that humiliating? Having to ask for help in an uncomfortable situation in front of other people? Gee, that sounds terrible. I wouldn't know anything about that. It's not like I experienced anything humiliating recently. Certainly not yesterday on a beach in front of dozens of strangers. More texts flooded in throughout the day. Everyone is asking where you are. Sophia wants to know if you're coming back. Zayn feels bad. He said he didn't mean to cause problems. Oh, Zayn feels bad. How considerate. Maybe he could pay for her hotel room since he was so involved in our vacation. This is ridiculous. Mason, you're being so petty. At least respond. I didn't respond, not to the texts, not to the calls, not to the voicemails that kept coming in with increasing desperation. I just sat there in my comfortable business class seat, watching movies, eating airplane food that was somehow better than any meal I'd had in Bali, and feeling more relaxed than I had in months. The flight attendant came by with more champagne. "Celebrating something?" she asked with a smile. "Yeah," I said. "Independence Day." She looked confused but refilled my glass anyway. Somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, I got a text from Sophia. "Dude, she's freaking out. She's crying." "What happened?" I almost responded. Almost. But then I remembered that Sophia was part of the problem. She'd laughed yesterday. She'd enabled it. She'd treated my humiliation like entertainment. Delete. Luke texted too. "Bro, she's crying at the front desk. Her card declined." This is harsh, man. Was it harsh? Or was it the natural consequence of telling your husband to go home if he didn't like watching you flirt with another man? I guess it depended on your perspective. Mia, always the gossip scent. OMG, what is happening? Talia won't tell us anything, but she's upset. Spill. Yeah, I wasn't spilling anything to someone who'd probably turn it into a group chat soap opera within 10 minutes. By the time we landed in Tokyo for the layover, I had 47 unread messages and 13 missed calls. I read through them while waiting for my connecting flight. Sipping terrible airport coffee that somehow tasted like victory. The most recent text from Talia was different from the others. Less angry, more desperate. "Please just tell me you're safe. I'm worried." Now she was worried. Not yesterday when she was making a fool of me in public. Not last night when she came back drunk and didn't even check if I was okay. But now when she needed something, suddenly she was concerned about my well-being. I finished my coffee and boarded the next flight. Still didn't respond. Because here's the thing about silence that I was really starting to appreciate. Every hour I didn't respond was another hour she had to sit with what she'd done. Every ignored call was a reminder that actions have consequences. Every unanswered text was a moment of reflection she couldn't avoid. I wasn't being cruel. I was just following instructions. She told me to go home. So, I went home. The beautiful thing about group chats is that nobody can keep a secret ever. It's like trying to contain water with a calendar. Theoretically possible if you're delusional, but in reality, everything's leaking everywhere and making a mess. I landed in Los Angeles around 6 p.m. Pacific time, which meant it was sometime tomorrow in Bali. Honestly, I'd lost track of time zones and stopped caring. My body felt like it had been folded into a suitcase and thrown down a flight of stairs. But my spirit was doing great, thriving even. I grabbed an Uber home, tipped the driver extra because he didn't try to make conversation, and walked into my apartment that I'd left 5 days ago thinking I was going on a romantic anniversary trip. The place looked exactly the same, clean, quiet, peaceful, and completely devoid of Talia's chaos. It was perfect. I dropped my suitcase, ordered a pizza, and was about to take the longest shower of my life when my phone buzzed with a notification that made me pause. It was a screenshot from a number I didn't recognize, but the content was gold. Someone had sent me a screenshot of what appeared to be Talia's friend group chat, the one they'd named Bali Babes Palm Tree Sparkles because apparently every group chat needs an emoji and zero self-awareness. The messages were from earlier today and they were spectacular. Sophia, guys, where is Mason? Talia won't tell us anything. Mia, I saw him leave this morning with his suitcase eyes. Luke, wait. What? Sophia, he left. Left. Mia, girl, yes. I was coming back from my run and saw him getting into a car. Airport car. Luke, bro, that's crazy. Over sunscreen. Sophia. Okay, but maybe we should have said something yesterday. Mia said what? That Talia was being extra. Sophia, I mean, yeah, kind of. Luke, she literally told him to go home if he was jealous. Mia. And he did skull. Sophia, this is bad, you guys. Luke. Talia is at the front desk freaking out. Says her card declined and his card is mysteriously not on file anymore. Mia, stop. Loudly crying face. Loudly crying face. Loudly crying face. Sophia, that's actually savage. Luke, bro, I feel kind of bad now. Mia, you feel bad? Imagine being Mason watching your wife flirt with the tour guide for 3 days straight. Sophia. Okay, Mia, don't act like you weren't encouraging it. Mia, I was not. Luke, you literally took a video of them playing volleyball and said, this is giving rom-com energy. Mia, that's different. Sophia, is it though? I sat there on my couch, pizza forgotten, reading this screenshot like it was the morning paper. They were turning on each other. The group chat was eating itself alive. This was better than any reality show I could have paid for. But it got better. A few minutes later, another screenshot came through. Different number, same group chat. Later in the conversation, Talia, I can't believe he actually left. Sophia, babe, are you okay? Talia, no, I'm not okay. He humiliated me, Luke. He humiliated you, Talia. Yes. Everyone saw him leave. Everyone's asking questions. It's embarrassing. Mia, didn't you tell him to leave, though, Talia? That's not the point. Mia, I think that might actually be exactly the point. Talia, whose side are you on? Mia, I'm just saying maybe you pushed it a little far with saying, Talia, I was being friendly. Luke Tal, you asked him to put sunscreen on your back in front of Mason. Talia, so what? It was just sunscreen, Sophia. And then you told Mason to go home if he didn't like it, Talia. I didn't think he'd actually do it. Luke, well, he did. Talia, you guys are supposed to be my friends. Mia, we are your friends. That's why we're telling you this is kind of on you. Talia, I can't believe this. Talia, I need to fix this. Oh, boy. She needed to fix this. I could only imagine what fixing this looked like in Talia's world. I found out about 30 minutes later when my phone exploded with Instagram notifications. Talia had posted. Of course, she had, because when you're in the middle of a personal crisis, the logical thing to do is definitely to post a thirst trap on social media and hope the validation from strangers will somehow repair your imploding marriage. The photo was from yesterday, a beach selfie she must have taken right after the sunscreen incident. She was wearing her white bikini, hair perfectly tousled by the wind, sunglasses pushed up on her head, giving the camera that sultry look that probably took 47 attempts to get right. The ocean sparkled behind her. The lighting was perfect. She looked objectively amazing. The caption though, oh man, the caption, some people can't handle strong women. Sparkles flexed biceps, living my best life and not apologizing for it. If you can't keep up, that's a you problem. Palm tree sun hashtag boss babe hash no apologies hash strong women hash living my truth hashtag Bailevi vibes. I stared at my phone, genuinely impressed by the audacity. She'd really looked at the situation. The situation where she publicly humiliated her husband and then got mad when he left and decided the narrative was, I'm too strong and he's too weak. Incredible. Truly incredible. I grabbed my pizza and settled in to watch what happened next because I knew what was coming. Talia had overestimated her followers' tolerance for delusion. The comments started rolling in and they were not what she expected. At Jessica_23. Girl, this is about your husband leaving Bali, isn't it? At Brooklyn Baker, strong women don't humiliate their partners in public. Radar to travel with Tom. Maybe your husband couldn't keep up with you disrespecting a man. Shrugging at Sarah Fit. This ain't it, sis. At Marcus Reeds, strong women lift people up, not tear them down. At Coffee and Chaos, the red flags are coming from inside the house. At Alexa Place POV, you're learning consequences exist. At Mindful Megan, imagine your husband leaves you on vacation and your first thought is to post a thirst trap skull. I was watching in real time as the internet did what the internet does best. Hold people accountable in the most brutally honest way possible. Comment after comment called her out. Not in a mean way, but in a hey, maybe you should look in the mirror way. Someone had clearly spilled the tea about what actually happened because the comments got more specific. At Vanessa Vlogs. Did you really tell your husband to go home if he was jealous and then get surprised when he went home? At Dan the Man Dan, ma'am, you asked the tour guide to put sunscreen on you in front of your husband. That's not strong woman energy. That's just disrespectful. At Linda Loves Books. Strong women don't humiliate their husbands in public and then play victim when there are consequences. That last comment got over 200 likes in the first 10 minutes. Talia started responding to comments, which was her first mistake. Never respond to comments when you're wrong. It's like digging a hole and then asking for a bigger shovel. Talia, at Brooklyn Baker, you don't know the full story. At Brooklyn Baker, then tell us. Why did your husband leave? Talia, he was being insecure and jealous. At Brooklyn Baker over what? And then Talia made her second mistake. She told them, Talia, I asked our tour guide to put sunscreen on my back and he freaked out. The comments exploded at MikeyMike_87. You asked another man to put sunscreen on you when your husband was right there and you're confused why he left. Face with tears of joy at Read with Rachel. Girl, I'm a feminist and even I know that's out of pocket. At Fitness Fiona, my husband would have left me too and I wouldn't have blamed him. At Tech with Terry, the mental gymnastics to make yourself the victim here is Olympic level. I was eating my pizza, scrolling through the comments, feeling like I was watching the most satisfying episode of a reality show ever made. The internet court was in session, and Talia was losing badly. More screenshots started coming through from anonymous numbers. Clearly, her friends were documenting everything and people were sharing it around. The group chat was still going. Luke, tell maybe delete the post. Talia, why? I didn't do anything wrong. Mia, the comments are not it. Babe, Talia, they don't understand. Sophia, I think they understand perfectly and that's the problem. 10 minutes later, the post was gone, deleted, vanished into the digital void like it never existed. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots of the post and the comments were already circulating. Someone had screen recorded her responding to comments. It was out there, permanent, a digital monument to the consequences of her actions. My phone buzzed one more time. Another text from an unknown number. Just 2 words. Chef's kiss. I didn't know who was sending me these screenshots, but I appreciated their service to journalism. I finished my pizza, took that shower, and went to bed in my own apartment, in my own bed, in complete peace and quiet. Meanwhile, somewhere in Bali, Talia was probably staring at her phone, realizing that the internet had just held up a mirror, and she didn't like what she saw. 3 days after I got back home, I was living my best divorced, but not officially divorced yet life. I deep cleaned the apartment, meal prepped for the week like I was training for a bodybuilding competition, and had started rewatching The Sopranos from the beginning because apparently my subconscious thought what I needed was more stories about toxic relationships and people making terrible decisions. I was on episode 4 enjoying my homemade stir fry and the fact that nobody was asking me to take photos of their food before they ate it when my phone rang. Unknown number. Now, normally I don't answer unknown numbers because I'm not a psychopath. Unknown numbers are either scammers trying to tell me my car's extended warranty is expiring, I drive a 10-year-old Honda, buddy, that ship has sailed, or robots asking if I want to lower my student loan payments. But something told me this one was going to be entertaining. I answered, hello. Silence for a second. Then that voice I'd been married to for 3 years, now sounding small and shaky in a way I'd never heard before. Mason, Talia. Of course, it was Talia. Who else would call from an unknown number after I'd ignored 47 texts and 13 calls from her actual phone? The woman was nothing if not persistent in her quest to make everything about her. Yeah, I said, keeping my voice neutral, not cold, not warm, just flat like a pancake that had been left on the griddle too long. You really left me there, she said. And I could hear that tremor in her voice that usually preceded tears. The same tremor she used when she wanted something or was trying to manipulate a situation in her favor. I'd heard it before when she wanted to buy a purse that cost more than our monthly groceries or when she needed me to cancel plans with my friends so she could have a crisis that somehow always required my immediate attention. Yeah, I said again. Why waste words? She knew what happened. She was there. I can't believe you, she said, and now the tears were definitely coming. I could hear that shift in her breathing, that little hitch that meant the waterworks were about to start. You just left without saying anything. Without even talking to me, I took a bite of my stir fry, chewed, swallowed. Tony Soprano was in the middle of a therapy session on my TV talking about his mother issues. Felt relevant. What did you want me to say? I asked, genuinely curious. You told me to go home if I was jealous. I went home. Seemed pretty straightforward. I didn't think you'd actually do it. Her voice went up an octave. That familiar tone of someone who's just realized their bluff got called and they're holding a terrible hand. It was a joke, Mason. You know how I am. I was just being dramatic. Yes, the classic, it was just a joke defense. The refuge of people who say hurtful things and then act shocked when there are consequences. I'd heard this one before, too. Usually after she'd made some comment about my job not being as exciting as her marketing career or about how I dressed like a dad even though I was 32. And that's not even that old. Cool, I said. Well, I took you seriously. My bad. You're bad. She was getting angry now. The tears evaporating into rage like water on hot pavement. You embarrassed me, Mason. Everyone saw you leave. Everyone was asking questions. Do you know how humiliating that was? I had to put my fork down for this one. Had to really appreciate the absolute audacity of what I just heard. Let me get this straight, I said slowly, like I was explaining algebra to a golden retriever. You're upset that I embarrassed you. Yes. By leaving after you publicly told me to leave. That's not your twisting it. I'm really not. I said you said and I quote, if you're jealous, go home. Then you got mad when I went home. I'm trying to understand the logic here, but it's not clicking. You know what I meant? Do I? Because it seems like you said exactly what you meant. You wanted me gone so you could keep flirting with Zayn without your boring husband watching. So, I left. Problem solved. She made this sound that was half gasp, half sob, like I just revealed some devastating truth she wasn't ready to face. Which, to be fair, I probably had. I wasn't flirting, she insisted, but even she didn't sound convinced. I was being friendly. There's a difference, right? I said, just like there's a difference between asking your husband to put sunscreen on your back and asking the shirtless tour guide to do it instead. Super friendly. Very normal behavior. Oh my God, you're still on that? It was sunscreen, Talia, I said. And I kept my voice calm because I'd learned that staying calm drove her crazy way more than yelling ever could. If it was just about sunscreen, you would have asked me. I was sitting 2 feet away from you. But you didn't want me to do it. You wanted Zayn to do it. And you wanted to make sure I saw it and knew that you didn't need me or care what I thought about it. Silence on the other end. The kind of silence that meant I'd hit the target dead center and she was scrambling for a comeback. You're being ridiculous, she finally said, but there was no conviction behind it. Maybe, I agreed. Or maybe I'm just tired of being treated like a prop in your one-woman show. That's not fair. You told me to go home in front of a beach full of people because I raised an eyebrow. One eyebrow, Talia. That's all I did. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just looked surprised that my wife was having another man rub lotion on her back and you responded by humiliating me publicly. So yeah, I went home and somehow I'm the villain here. More silence then. Quieter now. I had to call my mom for money. Ah, there it was. The real reason for this call. Not an apology, not reflection on her actions, not, hey, maybe I treated you like garbage and I should think about why my husband would rather fly 20 hours home than spend another day watching me disrespect him. No, she was mad about the money. I'm aware, I said. You texted me about it several times. Do you know how humiliating that was? She asked, and I almost laughed. Almost. Do I know how humiliating it is to need help in an uncomfortable situation in front of other people? I repeated slowly. Gee, Talia, I wonder what that's like. If only I had some recent experience with public humiliation that I could relate to. That's different. How? Because I actually needed help. You were just being petty. And there it was. The fundamental disconnect in her mind. Her needs were always valid and mine were always petty. Her feelings were always justified and mine were always overreactions. She was the main character and I was just supposed to read my lines and be grateful for the role. I followed your instructions, I said simply. You told me what to do if I was jealous. I did it. That's not petty. That's just listening. You could have just talked to me like an adult instead of running away. I tried talking to you for 3 years, I said, and I was surprised by how tired I sounded. Not angry, just exhausted. Every time you crossed a line, I talked to you. Every time you made me feel small, I talked to you. Every time you chose getting attention from other men over respecting me, I talked to you. And every single time you told me I was being insecure, jealous, or controlling. So, I stopped talking and I started listening instead. Listening to what? To what you were actually telling me. Not your words, but your actions. And your actions told me pretty clearly that you didn't respect me, didn't value me, and didn't think my feelings mattered. So, I left. She was crying for real now. Those big gulping sobs that might have worked on me a year ago, but I'd spent 3 days in peace and quiet, sleeping in my own bed, eating food I actually wanted to eat, watching TV shows I wanted to watch, and not once having to worry about being someone's emotional support audience. And I'd realized something important. I was happier alone than I'd been in years of being with her. Mason, please. She said through the tears. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can work on it. I'll be better. I promise. You said that before. I reminded her. After your company Christmas party when you spent 2 hours flirting with your boss while I stood in a corner holding your purse. After your friend's wedding when you dirty danced with the best man and told me to loosen up when I said something. After that concert where you gave your number to the bartender as a joke. Every time you promised you'd be better and every time nothing changed. This time will be different. Yeah, I said quietly. You're right. This time is different because this time I'm done. The line went quiet except for her breathing and the occasional sniffle. So that's it? She finally asked. You're just giving up? I'm not giving up. I said I'm just choosing myself for once. You told me what you wanted. You wanted me to go home. I listened. For the first time in our marriage, I actually listened to what you said instead of trying to decode what you meant or make excuses for your behavior. I didn't mean it, she whispered. That's the problem, Talia. You never mean it. You never mean to hurt me. You never mean to embarrass me. You never mean to disrespect me. But you keep doing it anyway. And I'm tired of being married to someone who keeps accidentally treating me like I'm invisible. Please don't do this. You already did it, I said simply. I'm just accepting it. I hung up then. Didn't wait for her response. Didn't give her a chance to make more promises or shed more tears or try to guilt me into giving her another chance. I just hung up and went back to my stir-fry and Tony Soprano. And I felt lighter than I had in years. After that phone call, something weird happened. Or rather, something weird didn't happen. I didn't block Talia's number. I didn't delete her contact. I didn't go through her Instagram like some kind of digital archaeologist looking for evidence of her latest crisis or public meltdown. I didn't even hate her, which was probably the most surprising part of all. I just unplugged. It was like someone had finally found the off switch to a machine that had been running nonstop for 3 years, making this constant humming noise that I'd gotten so used to, I'd forgotten what quiet sounded like. And now that it was off, man, the silence was deafening in the best possible way. My buddy Chris called me on day 4 of my newly peaceful existence. Chris was my college roommate, the guy who'd been best man at my wedding, even though he'd had some serious reservations about Talia that he'd kept mostly to himself because that's what good friends do. They let you make your own mistakes and then help you clean up the mess after without saying I told you so more than 3 or 4 times. Dude, he said when I answered, I saw Talia's Instagram story. I was at the gym actually working out for the first time in months instead of just paying for a membership I never used. Felt good, felt productive, felt like I was investing in myself instead of managing someone else's emotional stock portfolio. Yeah, I said, not really caring, but curious what new chapter of the Talia drama saga had unfolded. She posted this whole thing about knowing your worth and not letting toxic people dim your light with like a sunset photo and some quote that looked like it came from a Pinterest board for people going through breakups. I laughed, almost dropping my dumbbell. Let me guess, she's the one with worth and I'm the toxic person. I mean, she didn't say it explicitly, but the implication was pretty clear. Comments are a war zone, though. Her followers are not buying it. Good for them, I said, and I meant it. Not in a vindictive way, but in a I'm glad people can see through the performance way. You okay, man? Chris asked, and I could hear the genuine concern in his voice. Like, really okay? Because you sound I don't know. Too okay. I'm great, I said, and realized I actually meant it. I'm not spiraling, not stalking her social media, not writing angry texts at 2 a.m. that I'm too smart to actually send. I'm just done. And it feels amazing. Huh? Chris said like he was processing this. That's very mature of you, right? I'm as surprised as you are. The thing was, I really wasn't kidding. For the first time in years, I wasn't waking up with this low-level anxiety about what drama the day would bring. Would Talia be upset about something I said? Would she post something that would embarrass me? Would I have to defend her behavior to my friends and family again? Would I spend another evening being her personal photographer while she tried on 17 outfits for a dinner we were already late to? None of that existed anymore. My mornings were mine. My evenings were mine. My mental energy was mine. It was like I'd been carrying a backpack full of rocks for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. Work got better, too, which was unexpected. I'm an accountant. Not the most exciting job in the world, but it's stable, pays well, and I'm good at it. Talia used to make comments about how boring my job was, how she could never sit at a desk all day doing math stuff, how her marketing career was so much more creative and dynamic. I'd internalized that for a while. Felt kind of apologetic about having a normal job that didn't involve influencer events or brand partnerships or whatever the hell she did that required that many selfies. But now I showed up, did my work, helped my coworkers with their tax questions, and left feeling competent and useful. My boss, Patricia, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd been doing this for 30 years, stopped by my desk one afternoon with her coffee mug that said, "I'm not arguing. I'm just explaining why I'm right." "Mason," she said, peering at me over her glasses. "You seem different lately." "Different how?" I asked, hoping this wasn't leading to a conversation about my productivity or something. "Lighter," she said, less stressed. "Did you finally tell that wife of yours to knock it off with the surprise lunch visits?" Talia used to show up at my office unannounced, which sounds romantic until you realize she only did it when she wanted something or needed me to solve a problem she'd created. Patricia had witnessed more than one of these surprise visits that ended with me having to leave early or skip lunch to deal with whatever crisis Talia had manufactured. "We're separated," I said simply. "I left her in Bali and came home." Patricia's eyebrows shot up. Then slowly, she smiled. "Good for you." "Yeah, Mason, I've been married for 32 years. I know what a healthy relationship looks like, And whatever you had going on was not it. You've been walking around here for months looking like a man who's constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's nice to see you relaxed. That conversation stuck with me. Other people had noticed. My stress had been so visible that my boss, who barely knew me outside of quarterly reviews and the occasional conversation about Excel formulas, had picked up on it. My mom called on day 6. I'd been avoiding telling her about the separation because my mom loved Talia. Or rather, my mom loved the idea of me being married and potentially giving her grandchildren. And Talia knew how to perform for parents. She'd show up to family dinners with homemade desserts, store-bought, but she'd transfer them to a nice dish, compliment my mom's cooking, ask about my dad's golf game. She was great at the 2-hour performance. It was the other 8,758 hours of the year that were the problem. Honey, my mom said in that tone that meant she'd heard something from someone and was fishing for confirmation. Debbie Henderson told me she saw Talia's Instagram post about toxic people. Is everything okay? Debbie Henderson was my mom's friend from book club who apparently followed Talia on social media for reasons I'd never understood. We separated. Mom, I said, ripping off the band-aid. I left her in Bali and came home. We're probably getting divorced. Silence. Then what happened? I gave her the abbreviated version, the sunscreen, the public humiliation, the go home if you're jealous comment. My decision to actually go home. More silence. Then my mom said something that genuinely shocked me. Good. Good. Mason, I'm your mother. I love you, and I've been watching you shrink yourself for 3 years to make room for that girl's ego. You stopped coming to family dinners. You stopped calling. Every time we talked, you sounded exhausted. I thought marriage was supposed to make you happy, not turn you into someone I barely recognized. You never said anything, I said quietly. Because you seemed committed to making it work. And I respect that. But sweetie, there's a difference between working on a marriage and working yourself to death trying to fix someone who doesn't think they're broken. I'm glad you finally chose yourself. I didn't expect to get choked up, but I did. Hearing my mom, who'd been married to my dad for 37 years and took the for better or worse thing seriously, tell me she was proud of me for leaving felt like permission I didn't know I needed. My dad got on the phone after. Your mother's crying happy tears, by the way. She's very proud. Also, I never liked Talia. She ate all the good cookies at Christmas and didn't say thank you. Classic dad. Cutting right to what mattered. The days turned into a week, then 2 weeks. Talia kept trying different numbers, probably using her friends' phones or those free texting apps. I'd see the messages pop up, read them without opening them. Thank you, preview function, and then just move on with my day. We need to talk about us. I've been thinking about what you said. Can we at least discuss this like adults? I deserve a conversation. That last one almost made me respond. Almost. Because the audacity of thinking she deserved a conversation after 3 years of not listening to anything I said was truly something. But I didn't take the bait. Every time I felt tempted, I'd remember the beach, the sunscreen, the laughter from strangers, the way she'd smiled like my pain was entertainment. And I'd put my phone down and go do literally anything else. I started cooking actual meals instead of eating takeout every night. Tried new recipes, burned some things, made some things that were actually good. Didn't have to photograph any of it or wait while someone found the perfect angle and lighting. I read books, finished a whole novel in 3 days without interruption. I went to a movie by myself on a Wednesday afternoon and it was glorious. Nobody asked me to explain the plot in real time or complain that they were bored. I called old friends I'd lost touch with because Talia thought they were boring or bad influences. Translation: they didn't worship her. I existed. Just existed without drama, without damage control, without pretending that disrespect was a joke I should learn to laugh at. Silence, I discovered, wasn't just the absence of noise. It was a luxury brand I couldn't afford when I was married. Now I was living in it, wrapped in it like the world's most comfortable blanket. And I had zero intention of giving it up. A month into my new life as a separated but not quite divorced man, I was at Common Grounds, this coffee shop near my apartment that specialized in overpriced lattes and providing laptops to people who wanted to look busy while actually scrolling through Twitter for 3 hours. I was one of those people, except I was actually working. End of quarter reports don't write themselves. Unfortunately, the place was pretty packed for a Thursday afternoon. Students pretending to study, freelancers pretending to work, and that one guy who was definitely writing a screenplay about his ex-girlfriend that nobody was ever going to read. I'd snagged a corner table by the window, had my laptop open, my coffee within reach, and was deep into a spreadsheet that was giving me a migraine when I heard it. Oh no. Oh no. 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 Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I looked up just in time to see a coffee cup. A large iced coffee. Extra ice. From the looks of the waterfall now cascading off my table, tumbling in slow motion like we were in some kind of romantic comedy directed by someone who hated electronics. The coffee hit my laptop keyboard with the enthusiasm of a toddler jumping into a pool. Brown liquid spread across the keys, seeping into the touchpad, probably frying circuits and destroying whatever chance I had of finishing this report before the weekend. Standing there looking absolutely horrified was a woman in her late 20s with curly brown hair that was escaping from a messy bun, glasses sliding down her nose, and an expression that suggested she just committed a federal crime instead of a caffeine-related accident. "I am so sorry," she said again, frantically grabbing napkins from the dispenser and trying to mop up the coffee tsunami. "I tripped over that guy's backpack and just am so sorry. Is your computer okay? Please tell me it's okay." "Oh God, it's not okay, is it?" I grabbed my laptop, flipped it upside down to let the coffee drain out, and tried to assess the damage. The screen was still on, which was either a good sign or the last hera before everything died. Keys were sticky. The touchpad wasn't responding. This was not great. It's not great, I admitted, because lying seemed pointless when coffee was literally dripping onto the floor. "I'll pay for it," she said immediately, still wielding napkins like they could somehow undo physics. "I'll pay for repairs or a new one or whatever you need. I'm so sorry. I'm Nora, by the way. Nora, the person who just destroyed your computer. That's going to be my epitaph. Here lies Nora. She murdered a laptop with iced coffee." Despite the situation, despite my quarterly report probably being corrupted beyond repair and my laptop likely being dead, I laughed. Actually laughed because there was something about her complete mortification, her willingness to immediately take responsibility and her apocalyptic self-deprecation that was kind of refreshing. "Mason," I said, extending my non-coffee covered hand. "Mason, the guy whose laptop just got baptized in caffeine." She shook it, still looking like she might cry. "This is literally the worst thing I've ever done." "Well, no. One time I accidentally replied all to a company email about how boring the CEO's presentation was, but this is a close second. That's pretty bad." I agreed, right? I had to change teams. It was a whole thing. She looked at my laptop again, which was still dripping coffee despite my best efforts. "Listen, there's a computer repair place 2 blocks from here. Can I at least walk with you and pay for whatever they say? It's the least I can do. Actually, it's literally the least I can do since I caused this disaster." I should have said no. I should have just gotten her number for insurance purposes and dealt with it myself. But there was something about her, something genuine and unperformed about her panic that made me say yes. "Sure," I said, packing up my soggy laptop and coffee-stained papers. "Lead the way to the computer hospital." The repair shop was called Tech Resurrection, which felt appropriate given the circumstances. The guy behind the counter name tag said Kyle Beard said I have opinions about Linux. Took one look at my laptop and grimaced. "Iced coffee," he asked. "Is it that obvious?" Said the smell gave it away, plus the coffee's still dripping out of it. Kyle opened the laptop, poked at some keys inside. "I can try to save it but no promises. Liquid damage is tricky. Could be $100. Could be you need a new laptop. Won't know until I open it up." "Do whatever you need to do," Nora said immediately, pulling out her wallet. "I'm paying. This is my fault." "It was an accident," I said, feeling kind of bad about how guilty she looked. "An accident I caused by not watching where I was walking because I was texting my sister about her cat's dietary issues, which, let's be honest, could have waited." Kyle looked between us, clearly entertained. "I'll call you in a few hours with an estimate. In the meantime, maybe avoid coffee shops." We left the shop and stood on the sidewalk in that awkward way people do when they're not sure if the interaction is over or just beginning. Nora was still clutching her wallet, still looking like she'd committed a war crime instead of spilling a beverage. "I really am sorry," she said for approximately the 15th time. "I know," I said. "You've been very clear about that. I just feel terrible. You were working and I just destroyed everything with my clumsiness." "And hey," I interrupted gently. "It's okay. Seriously, laptops can be fixed or replaced. It's not like you killed my dog. Do you have a dog?" "No." "Good. Because I'd feel even worse if I had to worry about being a dog murderer on top of being a laptop murderer." I laughed again twice in 10 minutes. That had to be some kind of record for conversations that started with property damage. "Look," she said, taking a breath like she was about to make a decision. "Can I at least buy you a coffee? A new coffee from a different shop where I promised to keep both hands firmly on the cup at all times." I should have said no. I was technically still married, even if separated. Getting coffee with a woman who just destroyed my laptop seemed like a weird premise for anything. But there was something about Nora, something unpolished and real that made me want to say yes. Sure, I said. But maybe we skip the iced drinks. We ended up at a different coffee shop 3 blocks away. A quieter place that looked like someone's grandmother had decorated it with lace doilies and inspirational quotes about friendship. Nora got a hot tea because I can't be trusted with cold beverages apparently. And I got a regular coffee. We sat at a table by the window and that's when I realized something strange. The silence wasn't awkward. With Talia, silence had always needed to be filled. She'd get anxious if nobody was talking, would start telling stories or showing me something on her phone or creating drama just to have something happening. But Nora, she just sipped her tea and looked comfortable existing without narrating every moment. So, she finally said, "What do you do when you're not having your laptop murdered by clumsy strangers?" "I'm an accountant," I said, waiting for the usual response. Some joke about how boring that must be or a comment about tax season or the glazed over look people get when you mention spreadsheets. "Oh, nice," she said instead. "My brother's an accountant, says it's actually pretty interesting once you get into it. Something about financial puzzles." I blinked. "Yeah, actually it's kind of like solving puzzles. Most people don't get that. Most people probably haven't spent 4 hours trying to balance a budget for a non-profit that keeps receipts in a shoebox. That was my last job. Nightmare." We talked for an hour. Just talked about work, about life, about her cat-obsessed sister and my dad who ranked cookies by thank you frequency. She didn't pull out her phone once. Didn't check her reflection in anything. Didn't perform. She just existed peacefully like a regular human having a regular conversation. When she laughed, it was because something was actually funny, not because she had an audience to impress. When she told stories, she included the embarrassing parts about herself instead of turning everything into a highlight reel. She asked questions and actually listened to the answers instead of waiting for her turn to talk. It felt strange at first. Calm is addictive once you taste it, but it's also kind of alarming when you're used to chaos. "I should probably go," she said eventually, checking her watch. "I have a thing tonight, but thank you for being so nice about the whole laptop massacre. Most people would have been way angrier. Most people probably haven't had worse things happen to them recently," I said without thinking. She looked at me curiously, but didn't pry, just smiled and said, "Well, Kay has my number for the repair bill, but if you want to, get coffee again sometime with me keeping my beverages far away from your electronics." "I'd like that." I realized I would like that, too. A lot actually. "Yeah," I said. "I'd like that." She left and I sat there for another few minutes finishing my coffee and thinking about how different that interaction had been from anything I'd experienced in the last 3 years. No drama, no performance, no competing for space in my own story. Just a conversation with someone who seemed content being herself instead of auditioning for a role. It was weird. It was peaceful and I wanted more of it. 3 weeks after the coffee shop incident, my laptop was fixed. $200. Nora insisted on paying every cent. I'd had 4 more coffee dates with Nora, all without beverage-related casualties, and I'd officially filed for divorce. That last one was surprisingly easy. Turned out that when you have a clear-cut case of spouse publicly humiliated me and told me to leave, so I left. The paperwork practically fills itself out. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Rebecca, who'd seen everything and was impressed by nothing, looked over the timeline of events and actually smiled. "This is the most straightforward case I've had all year. She literally told you to go home. You went home. She can't really argue with that." "She'll try," I said, because I knew Talia. She'd try to spin it, reframe it, make it about my jealousy or insecurity or inability to handle her free spirit. "Let her try," Rebecca said, closing the file. "We've got screenshots of her Instagram post, witness statements from other tourists, and the hotel records showing you removed yourself from the room charges while she was still there. Plus, her own text messages saying, 'Go home if you're jealous.' This is what we call an airtight case of getting exactly what you asked for." I left her office feeling lighter than I had in years. The divorce would take a few months to finalize. Bureaucracy moves slower than a DMV line on a Monday. But the hard part was done. I'd made the decision. I'd filed the papers. I was officially legally moving on. My phone buzzed while I was walking to my car. Text from an unknown number, which meant it was probably Talia using yet another friend's phone or app. She'd been doing that for weeks, trying different approaches like I'd be testing her way back into my life. But this time, it wasn't Talia. Unknown number. "Hey man, it's Luke. Got your number from the wedding list. Hope that's cool." Luke, the wannabe DJ from Bali. The one who'd sent me those group chat screenshots that I'd enjoyed way too much. Me, hey, what's up, Luke? Just wanted to let you know Talia is back home. Got back last week. Of course, she was. The vacation had to end eventually, and I'm sure staying in Bali after I left wasn't quite as fun when she had to face the fact that her actions had consequences and also pay for everything herself. Luke, she's been pretty quiet, says she learned her lesson. I stared at that text for a long moment. She learned her lesson. Like, this was some kind of educational experience where she'd taken notes and would do better on the next test. Like 3 years of disrespecting me had been a rough draft and now she was ready to submit the final version. Me, good for her. I hit send and then did something that felt weirdly powerful. I muted the conversation. Not blocked, just muted because blocking felt like I still cared enough to actively keep her out. But muting? Muting was just indifference. Luke, she wanted me to tell you she's sorry. Really sorry. Says she gets it now. I saw the message in my notifications but didn't open it. Didn't respond. Just pocketed my phone and got in my car. Here's the thing about revenge that nobody tells you. Most of the time you don't need it. Life has this beautiful way of handing people receipts for their behavior. Full price, no discount, all taxes included. I didn't need to plot anything. Didn't need to post anything. Didn't need to air out our dirty laundry or make her look bad. She'd done all of that herself. The internet had already held up a mirror. Her friends had already questioned her judgment. She'd already had to call her mom for money in a foreign country. Already had to explain to everyone why her husband left in the middle of their anniversary trip. Already had to face the fact that actions have consequences. And it's just a joke. Only works until someone takes you seriously. I didn't need revenge. She'd already gotten the bill. That night, I had dinner with Nora. Nothing fancy, just this Thai place near her apartment that she swore had the best pad Thai in the city. She was right. It was incredible. And also, I realized halfway through the meal that this was the first dinner I'd had in months where nobody had made me wait while they photographed the food from 17 angles. You're smiling, Nora said, twirling noodles around her fork. What's funny? Nothing, I said. Just I'm having a good time. Is that unusual? She asked, but not in a confrontational way. Just curious. It used to be, I admitted, my ex. Well, almost ex. The divorce is processing. She made everything complicated. Even dinner was a performance. Had to get the lighting right, the angle right, the caption right. By the time we actually ate, the food was cold, and I'd lost my appetite. Nora made a face. That sounds exhausting. It really was. Well, she said, raising her water glass like it was champagne. Here's to hot food and low expectations. I clinkied my glass against hers. I'll drink to that. We didn't have some big dramatic moment where I declared my feelings or she became my rebound or whatever movie script people think happens after a breakup. We just enjoyed each other's company, talked about normal things, made plans to see a movie next weekend, exchanged memes about accounting. Yes, accounting memes exist. And yes, they're hilarious if you're a specific type of nerd. It was simple. It was easy. It was peaceful. And peace, I discovered, was underrated. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment. My space decorated how I wanted it, organized in a way that made sense to me. And the first thing I noticed was the quiet. Not the heavy, anxious quiet of waiting for something bad to happen. Not the tense quiet of tiptoeing around someone's mood. Just quiet, peaceful, comfortable, quiet. I made my own coffee. Not some complicated order that required specific measurements and organic ingredients and a certain type of oat milk. Just coffee, black, simple, perfect. I opened the curtains and let the morning light in. Something Talia never liked because it wasn't flattering for morning selfies. The sun felt good, warm, real. I sat on my couch with my coffee and my book and thought about how different my life looked now compared to a month ago. How I wasn't walking on eggshells. Wasn't managing someone else's emotions. Wasn't pretending that disrespect was love or that public humiliation was just her being playful. My phone buzzed. Text from my mom. Mom, coming over for dinner Sunday. Your father is making his famous ribs. Also, Debbie Henderson told me Talia is back in town and devastated. I told Debbie that sounds like a personal problem. Was I rude? I laughed out loud. Me. Not rude. Accurate. I'll be there Sunday. Can I bring someone? Mom. The coffee shop girl. Me. Her name is Nora. Mom. Mom. Can't wait to meet Nora. Tell her your father will interrogate her about her cookie preferences. It's his love language. I smiled and put my phone down. Took another sip of coffee. Looked around my apartment. My space. My life. My peace. Talia had told me to go home if I was jealous. And yeah, maybe I did go home. I got on a plane, flew 20 hours and came back to my apartment. But somewhere between leaving Bali and filing for divorce and meeting Nora and reclaiming my own life, something shifted. This place, this quiet, peaceful, drama-free space stopped being just where I lived. It became home. Not because of the furniture or the location or the rent I paid every month, but because for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. I could exist without performance. I could just be myself without apologizing for taking up space or having feelings or expecting basic respect from the person I'd married. I'd spent 3 years being a supporting character in someone else's show. And I'd finally remembered that I was the main character in my own life. And the best part, my story was better without all that manufactured drama. Turns out peace isn't boring. It's just what happens when you stop accepting chaos as normal. My coffee was still hot. The sun was still shining. I had a book to read, a date with Nora this weekend, ribs with my parents on Sunday, and absolutely zero drama to manage. Talia could keep her apologies and her lessons learned and her devastation. I didn't need any of it. I didn't need closure or revenge or even acknowledgement that she'd been wrong. I just needed what I had right now. My coffee, my quiet, my peace. So yeah, maybe I did go home like she told me to. But for the first time in a long time, it actually felt like home. And I wasn't going anywhere.